Well, happy Monday. Mark O'Connor, I'm so happy to see you here.
Great. Thanks. Thanks so much for having me, Muriel.
Well, it's been a while. I mean, I saw you in New York when you were there, and I think before that was the Hornbachers house concert in San Diego area.
Oh yeah, I
That's
used to
right.
live out there.
Yeah, you came over to my gig and sat in, and we played tunes together, and yeah.
Oh yeah, that was on the north end, North San Diego County. I lived out there for 10 years,
Ah,
and it was great to see you there. I remember that.
yeah. And you were a mainstay in Nashville for quite some time, and I always think of you as, like the definition of virtuoso. When virtuoso, comes up in the dictionary, they have your picture there, and just you're known everywhere as, a true virtuoso of the
Mm.
violin, and a lot of people are the fiddle, and a lot of people don't know that your guitar playing rivals that.
You know, when I first moved to Nashville, Chet Atkins invited me to move there,
Oh, Chet.
and he invited me to move there as a guitar player. And I was going to. Well, I did apprentice him a little bit. Like we hung out, and he put me on television with him. Actually, you can see those YouTubes of me and him playing twin guitars in the early '80s,
Wow.
and then it was about that first year I was in Nashville, and I was looking around, going, "Man, there's a lot of guitar players here," and I was wondering how I was going to weave through all of the thousands of guitar players, and I one day I asked Chet about the fiddle. You see, I realized, like, I mean, I was playing fiddle in other areas of Nashville. I'd go down to the Station Inn and play with Peter Rowan and Jerry Douglas, and so I was getting plenty of kind of like fiddle, low level fiddle gigs. It was, I mean, I was still looking for a Nashville career, if you will.
Hmm.
And at some point, I realized that Chet never had me play the fiddle with him or around the office or anything. And one day I brought it up and I said, "What do you think about the fiddle? Is it possible to get the fiddle going in Nashville?" Because the fiddle was not on any records anymore. It was like completely old school. Like it went out with honky tonk. And and that's what he said. He said, "Well, fiddle in country music was associated with honky tonk music or bluegrass, and neither one of them was on the radio. No, neither one of them was being recorded for major labels at
No
that point.
kidding. Well, that's certainly not true now.
No,
Uh,
no, no. I mean, it was completely out. So like, if I can pigeonhole the era for you, so you can kind of understand what we're talking about. Dolly Parton was not singing mountain songs. She was singing Islands in the Stream with Kenny Rogers, pop crossover. That's what Nashville was really doing. And so Chet told me that he said, "Man, I don't know. The fiddle is not really in commercial music." And I said, "Do you think it's possible to bring it back in?" And he told me, he said, "If it can be done, you can do it." And
yeah.
so I set my mind to try to figure that out and meet producers that were not had never recorded fiddle, and if they did, they hated it. I mean, like they had horrible experiences with fiddling. Whether they got the wrong fiddler, or it was out of tune, or scratchy, or whatever that was. They tried it once, they didn't like it. And a lot of these producers were new to Nashville. I mean, they were coming in as pop producers. I mean, a lot like even people like Billy Sherrill that it's like Nashville royalty that produced George Jones. He came in as an R&B producer. He was doing R&B and blues, um, and so forth. You can just add them all up, and then you look at their bio and where they're from, and they're not from country music. At that point, only and Chet was out of. He was not producing anymore. So, and I mentioned Chet a lot because I know Muriel. You were really good friends with Chet.
Yeah, he actually gave me fiddle lessons. Did you know that?
I know that's the thing. He played the fiddle too.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah, he kept it in his closet in his office. And when I started saying, talking about fiddle, he says, "Well, my grandfather played. But did his grandfather play the fiddle?" And I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. Did his father play the fiddle too?
Well, it was his first instrument. He was playing in, little honky tonk dance bands
Yeah,
on the fiddle first before playing the guitar.
yeah,
Oh, yeah,
that's amazing. It's, he's from East Tennessee, so it's
yeah,
it's in the tradition of culture there.
yeah. Well, before we play some live music for you, I would like to play a little clip of you playing some guitar. Uh, Not a lot of people have heard this, and your new album is all guitar, right?
Yeah. So my new album, it's called Markology 2.
Hmm.
And I decided to follow the first one up, which was called Markology. I followed it up 42 years later. So I had the first Markology in 1978 when I was just 16 years old, and it was my solo guitar album. And I got back into the guitar. I had laid it off, for about 20 years,
Wow.
and never played it. And I was just totally into the violin and composing, doing all kinds of different things with the violin. And I had bursitis in my arm that was very bad in the 90s. And I quit playing guitar just to try to preserve the health of my arms. I had to cut. The doctor said, "You got to cut way back." I mean, at that point, I was playing all day long. Like
Wow.
in the sessions, I was playing, literally up to 18 hours a day, because I was doing my Warner Brothers albums in after hours. So I would do sessions all day, and then I would start my album work in the evenings, like around 10 or 11 at night, and go through to 3 or 4 in the morning. That's how I recorded all those Warner Brothers albums for years. But anyway, I got the guitar back, and I started playing and creating arrangements. So this clip we're going to see goes all the way back to before the first Markology album, and I was preparing arrangements for the album. And this was when I was 15 years old on stage, accompanied by Jeff Thorne. This is from Seattle, and I didn't even know this tape existed until a few months ago during the pandemic. I was going through some old archives, and I found it. And there was the setup to the first Markology. I was figuring this stuff out when I was 15.
Wow. Cool. How about that?
Yeah.
We actually had 2 requests for you to play something from Arcology.
All right.
Yeah, so we've already filled that. So Rick and Stan and Mark, actually all 3 of them, Rick
Well,
said it's a musical dream come true.
I've got the guitar right from there. So that's you guys probably remember that from the first Markology album. That's Dixie Breakdown, and that was my winning rendition at Winfield at the Guitar Flat Picking Championships that year.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so I still have that old herringbone Martin, and it's downstairs. I only kept one guitar, and I didn't want to take that out on the road, so I had this wonderful maker from the Colorado Guitar Company, John Baxendale, make me a guitar that's in that image of the old Martin, and I've got it right there behind me. I'll just grab it, and I'll play a little something from the new the Markology 2 album. I'll grab it.
Right. And we'll say some hellos. We've got a lot of hellos to say, Bill and Gail. And Tom says from Clearwater, he's got tickets to see my concert November 19th in Florida. So great. Oh, here's Mark. Oh, way. That just makes me want to flat pick all over again. I mean, I love flat picking. So long ago I used to do, both flat picking and finger picking. I just lost my flat pick.
All right.
It's so inspirational to hear you do that. Love that style. And we have some hellos from Durham, England, from Brian, and from Glasgow, from Charles, and Cynthia.
Oh, right.
And our friend Don Gaynor says he was your neighbor in Alderwood, Washington.
Alderwood, oh my goodness, yes. I grew up in Mount Lake Terrace, Washington. Alderwood was right there near Linwood. And so, hello. I don't see the chat on my screen, so I'll have to rely on you, Muriel, to let me know what people are.
Well, there are a whole bunch of people saying, great.
Man. But that's like, I got the drop D, tuning. And I came up with this arrangement that's kind of loosely constructed on green sleeves. So it's like an exploration of that.
Yeah.
It's kind of like it's humming along in the background, but I don't really state the melody fully,
Right. We have another hey from Rob in the Bay Area.
I lived in the Bay Area. I played with David Grisman Quintet out there.
Oh.
I moved out there. I actually moved down from Seattle when I was just 17 and auditioned. You'll remember it's probably still out there, the Great American Music Hall in the
Yes,
Bay
it
Area.
is. Yes.
And I auditioned for Stephen Grappelli in the green room of that hall with David Grisman. And they hired me, and I did the tour. And then eventually, after that tour with Stephen Grappelli, which was launched out of the Bay Area, I went back home, Seattle, and I had just turned 18. And I was wondering what to do. I was thinking about moving to Nashville. And when Grisman called and said he wanted me to replace Tony Rice full time in the David Grisman Quintet, and it was a heady thing, and I went down to the Bay Area, and then it turned out that Tony called me, and he wanted me to be in his band, and so I was actually playing the violin in his group and the guitar in David's group, and I was trying to do both things at one time, and they weren't going to do it. They were kind of bickering over the musicians. And I was so young, man. I'm writing my autobiography right now, and I'm writing about all this crazy stuff that was going on that a lot of people really don't know the background stories to. Yeah. But I was hanging out with all these major players as a teenager, and I was like their protege, but I was also playing gigs with them, so I was their colleague as well as their student, so it was some crazy times.
Yeah, and you learned a lot from Benny Thomason too, that real fiddly style that you do.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That you might be able to see it in the shot. Let me see. Actually, it's over here. You can see the white fiddle behind me. So that I got that.
Bigger.
Yeah, I got that from. Yeah. There it is. I got that from Benny, and he taught me the Texas style breakdowns.
Yeah.
And I'm covering it up with my. There it is. It's this crazy white fiddle. I'll grab it. I'll play a couple licks on it. It is like a crazy magical thing. Like it just hangs out there on the wall, and it doesn't need to be played. It just sounds good, and it plays those Texas fiddle tunes really good. Mm. I'll grab it really quick and just play a couple of licks.
Okay, Mark. Before you let's see, I'll just say some hellos. We got a couple more hellos come in. William T-Pole's there, and Mike also, and Rob Waxman. So greetings to you. And Boise. And you know who else?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Mark can't hear me. He just took his headphones off. Oh, man. Great stuff. Well, Marty Masters says, hey, and Bunny Barnes, hello. Mark, you know who just popped in here is Alistair Hay, who built this guitar that I just got in the mail just this week.
That is brand new.
Well, yeah, so a little over a week ago.
Great job. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, so I got it because it's carbon fiber and it's one that I can play on the sailboat,
Nice, that's.
And let me.
It's beautiful.
Show you a little bigger here. And I just came from the harp guitar gathering, so there were 38 of us with all different harp guitarists there, and a couple super trebles. This is built by Luke Bruner.
That is cool.
Well, I'll do a tune for Alistair since he's here.
I'll
play a tune on his instrument. So
great, Alistair. Yeah.
So this is a nylon string carbon fiber harp guitar. Well, I don't know if you can hear
Beautiful.
how pretty that is. I know with the internet, some people hear one thing, some people hear another thing. You know, it just depends on your bandwidth.
Boy, that just beautiful. It just blossoms.
Yeah, I had no idea that Alistair would be tuning
That's
in. So
great.
thank you.
Great
That's so
job,
cool.
Alistair. Really nice. Yeah, like we were celebrating new instruments, new luthiers
Yes.
that are making these instruments. Beautiful. Actually, the two fiddles that we play. My wife Maggie. We have a duo, and we're performing. We took a little break. Actually, your viewers might want to know this, but we just wrapped 70 Monday night concerts from home. We had done it during the pandemic. It was called Mondays with Mark and Maggie O'Connor.
Wow. So that's the reason you were able to be here because you just finished up your Monday nights.
Right. Yeah, we just wrapped it up because we
Wow.
started getting gigs and got a little busy now. So, but we did it for 70 Mondays in a row without missing any. And it was, we got mics and cameras, and we had a producer, and we had guests, and it's we understand about the internet, the sound and trying to get the best quality, and we wrestled with that, but we got some good stuff. It was really good, but yeah, Maggie and I, we've been married for about 7 years, and we've been performing. We had the O'Connor Band for a while, and then we won a Grammy for Best Bluegrass Album a few years ago, and
Yeah.
then now Maggie and I are going to do duo stuff, and we have a new program that the agency has developed with a presenter in Atlanta at Emory University, and it's called Beethoven and Bluegrass, and it features a string quartet playing Beethoven string quartet, and then they play one of my string quartet compositions. I have 3 long-form string quartets I've composed, and they'll play that, and then Maggie and I will come on and play our duos repertoire. And then we'll add the finale at the end with Appalachia Waltz. And I know that you
Oh, yeah.
particularly like my Appalachia Waltz recording I
Yes,
did with
I
Yo-Yo
do.
Ma. Yeah, yeah.
That's just lovely, and I love what you've done in many ways and for many years, mixing genres, and uh, mixing them but not watering them down, enhancing them and bringing one into the other and going back and forth. So you've just done some wonderful things in opening people's ears and coming up with new ideas musically.
Well, it was one of those things where I was like, right from the very beginning, I felt like my forte was creating new kinds of American music by simply following what the masters did already. Bill Monroe,
Hmm.
Earl Scruggs, Chet Atkins, Jimmy Rogers, the Carter family. I mean, and then the jazzers. I mean, my gosh, Louis Armstrong, and Louis Armstrong had a banjo in his first band. So these guys were like fusing, and the greatest generation, the great generation, and that is really applies to the music and the culture. And I think at some point, honestly, during World War II, our culture started to really specialize in and started to divide up music. And really, it was for the first time in American history that there were these kinds of divisions put forward by the people in charge, the gatekeepers, the
Record
people at
companies.
radio,
Mhm.
their initial record companies. They were dividing the culture. So they would say to this person, oh, you play that specific style well, we're going to just have you do that only. And don't do any of this stuff over here. You just do that. Then we're going to get someone else over here to cover, jazz or cover ragtime or cover the classics or whatever that is. And you don't cross over to folk music or to hillbilly music. And they started because all the initial American fiddlers, for instance, from the greatest generation in the 20s and 30s, they could play all the stuff. They could play they could play swing, they could play ragtime, they could play hoedowns and breakdowns, they could play the blues, they could play classical music, they could read music, they could play by ear and read. And somehow during the World War II era and the 50s and the 60s, everybody was separated, segregated musically. I mean, there's obviously segregation going on in our government and policy from academia on everywhere. But the musicians were the ones that would bring people together. So I came along and I sensed that there was this thing that was overlooked, and I wanted to reintroduce that idea. Because when I first started playing and learning the fiddle, there were people from the bluegrass world that were totally against the Texas fiddle, like the thing that I just played to you on the white fiddle.
Yeah.
They were totally against that. Bill Monroe didn't like that stuff. And,
right, you had to play it
right,
that way.
Right. And then the old time fiddlers, the Texas fiddlers and other people like that, they disliked bluegrass. And then so you multiply that through all the different genres. And I was going, you know what? I'm not going to do that. I'm going to fuse these things together. And I took a lot of flack for it at the beginning, but it eventually became the thing to do. And all of the generations after me have done that. They've made a fusion of all these things. They can run the table. They can do it all.
All right. Well, I think we have similar paths in that way, because people told me, well, you have to decide what kind of a guitarist you are. Are you a bluegrass guitarist or jazz guitarist or classical or fingerstyle or flat picking, And,
yeah.
And at that time I was, I liked certain things in all those styles. And I just finally decided, okay, I got to do what's in my heart. And that was music and all of those, even though there wasn't at that time a market for it.
Right.
Yeah.
We had to develop a way to get the music out there. And luckily, I had major labels that were interested in what I was doing, both Warner Brothers and Sony Classical. For 20 years, I was on major labels producing my recordings. And that's what I love about the music that Maggie and I are playing together. We're doing a lot of fiddle stuff, a lot of my classical arrangements, and also we're going to get ready to record a new album of a lot of vocal material that we've been writing and singing, and we're doing some of this music is right from the O'Connor Method, which is an educational series of books that I spent 10 years authoring and researching, and it's a new idea of how to inspire a violin student with American music, because American music is so creative and so inspirational. And a lot of times what happens with really young beginners, they never get to that stuff. They start practicing etudes and scales, and the about 3 years, they go, this is not working, I'm quitting. So the attrition rate for violin students is really high. It's like 9 out of 10 students that study violin will quit the violin within 3 to 4 years. And when I was putting on my string camps, and I was getting all these little kids coming to the camps, and their parents were telling me, this is our last ditch effort to save little Johnny or little Susie on the violin, or they're going to quit because they can't stand it, And so that 1 week at our camp, we were saving all these families into the music, because these families, a lot of them didn't grow up. They weren't steeped in the tradition of families handing down music. And I wasn't either. I mean, I was the first musician in my family, so I totally related to their predicament. But because music wasn't in their family, and if little Johnny and little Susie didn't like it after 3 or 4 years, what are they going to do? They're just going, okay, well, let's do something else, maybe trumpet or maybe electric guitar or drums, but not the violin. So the O'Connor Method really celebrates American music being taught all the way and to really inspire the kids with creativity, great musical literature, all the different styles of American playing. And Maggie, my wife, is right here. We could play you a tune
Oh yeah,
together.
I'd love for you to do that.
Um, let's play. We're gonna play one actually that's from Book 4
Oh,
of the
okay.
O'Connor Method. And this is an advanced tune. This is by the time we get to Book 4 and 5, they're advanced stuff, but it's all professional music at that point.
Cool.
This is a tune that I wrote. One of the few tunes I wrote that's in the book. This is Maggie.
Hello.
Hi, Maggie. Good to see you.
Yeah. And this is called Emily's Reel, and this is arranged for 2 fiddles. And Emily, for people that are taking notes, Emily is Yo-Yo Ma's daughter, because I actually wrote it for his daughter to play on the fiddle. But this is my wife, Maggie O'Connor, everybody.
Glad to be here. I love that awesome looking instrument you have.
Oh, thank you.
What is that?
It's a harp guitar. And
Wow.
just in case you need a few more strings on your fiddle, you could.
Yes. Oh my gosh,
add
tuning
some
that
extra
must
ones.
be
Yeah.
quite a chore. That's beautiful. I'd love to play with that.
Isn't that beautiful? Okay, so we'll play this for you. This is Emily's Reel. And by the way, these are 2 fairly new instruments. Mine is made by John Cooper, and Maggie's is made by Lucas Wronski. And they're all they've been made within the last 25 years. So fairly modern instruments, and they sound good together. All right, so this is Emily's Reel. 1, 2, 3.
Oh, wonderful. You know, I could swear that I heard that tune in the fiddlers group. We used to have old time and bluegrass fiddle picking sessions in Nashville on Tuesday nights, and I think that that's one that was played.
Oh yeah,
So
it's
yeah,
getting it's getting some
it's getting around.
it's getting some airtime out there.
Yeah,
I actually wrote that, like I said, for Yo-Yo Ma's daughter, and she was a budding violinist, but well, like many violin students, she quit. She didn't have a teacher teaching her American stuff, American tunes, because there's so much there, and you can, with American music, you can be a professional, you can be an amateur, you can be a teacher. I mean, and really be happy with what you're doing musically. Like
yeah,
you don't have to be Yasha Heifetz
yeah.
to
I
feel
think
satisfied with with your development. But there's always that goal that we always have. We can take it as far as we want to.
right, and I think that that's something that every kid in grade school should learn is American music, bluegrass, old timey. American music, because for one thing, it brings everyone together. You go to any picking session, and there's at least three generations playing together,
Yeah,
and of all different levels, just like you said. Like at the fiddle group, there were a couple of wonderful players who were just playing that great, and then there was somebody like me who's just trying to find the notes, and uh, and it was. That's that's when I was learning the fiddle. There's a lot of jokes about what a terrible fiddle student I was.
oh,
Yeah, Chet would we'd go to a fiddle shop, and Chet would say, "Whatever you do, don't let her play the fiddle."
oh gosh, yeah, he can be brutal.
It was funny. Well, I made sure that I when it got just to the point where people weren't sure if they were supposed to laugh or not, I decided I was spending way too much time playing the fiddle, and I better get back to playing guitar again. But anyway,
Well,
it's something that everyone can join in, and everyone knows the same tunes, and that's a great thing.
there's a common repertoire, and
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure that I featured that in the books. You can go to o'connormethod.com, and everything you want to know about the American music method for violin and strings, viola and cello and orchestra. That's the other component too. There's the studio lessons where you're learning a lot of this stuff, and then there's classroom, stuff where you're in an orchestra and you're learning some of the same repertoire, but beautiful orchestrations of the Americana music. Maggie, I want her to talk a little bit about her upbringing too, because she grew up in a family of musicians, and she had both things going on. She had the bluegrass and the blues and the writing and arranging with the family band, and then she had the orchestra and classical instruction that she took all the way through Peabody Conservatory, where she got 2 degrees for classical violin. And it's great to have her as my colleague and my life partner and,
Yeah.
and all this too. Maggie, if you would want to talk a little bit about your upbringing and how you learned the violin.
Sure. Yeah, I feel like I had the O'Connor method before the O'Connor method was invented. I think, when did you, it's like only 10 years
Yeah,
old
about
now?
a dozen years ago now.
Yeah, but the book series is incredible because I was very fortunate that I was in a family band basically the second that I chose an instrument. I got to choose which instrument to play in the family band, but my dad, we had moved from Florida to Georgia, and when we were in Florida, until I was 7, my dad was in a band. And so then when we moved to Georgia, he didn't have his band anymore. And so he looked at my brother and I and said, "Okay, you're my band now." So I was in this really creative setting, and I didn't even know how to play an instrument yet. And we'd come up with instrumental arrangements and everything. I chose the violin, and I just stuck with it, and I was doing. We pretty quickly realized you need lessons on this instrument. It's not the easiest thing to just pick up and play if you don't know what you're doing.
Yes.
So, but yeah, I went all the way, did a lot of classical studies, and I was also doing other styles as well, like bluegrass and blues and pop songs, and just a little bit of everything. And I just love that in the fiddling culture, especially, there is this sense of community and the sense of inclusiveness, and including people of all ages and all experiences. And sometimes that can be missing in the classical world. There's a little bit of an elite feeling sometimes when we're in the classical setting, and there's a lot of merit to that as well. But I just love the culture that we can bring with American music to all the generations when we're learning from the very beginning levels. And so I love what we're doing with that.
It does so much for kids' confidence and gives them healthy ways to interact with other people and just have a wonderful time.
Yeah, and the tools that you get from the music, you can keep with you your entire life, which is so wonderful.
Yeah. Matter of fact, you've got that one clip that you shared with me when we were setting up for tonight, where I was playing the very first tune that's featured in the O'Connor method, Boil 'em Cabbage Down.
Oh, I didn't pull it up because that was too big of a file.
Yeah, that was, I played that with Whit Marsalis, so you guys could look it up on YouTube. It's on YouTube. But
yeah,
here we are playing the very first beginning tune from the O'Connor method with a jazz giant like Whit Marsalis on stage at a major jazz festival. And little kids see that and they go, that's the tune I'm learning, and one day I could play it like that, Yeah. So in the American music scene, all the tunes actually are professional tunes. You can rearrange them later, you can jam or improvise on them later, and you don't have to discard them. They're old friends. They stick around.
Yeah. Well, we'll say some hellos to. I see some people popping some haze in. And
all right.
I also wanted to say that I've been enjoying teaching lately on string masters. So that's a new format. Jeremy Cohen put that together, violinist. He said to say hello to you, Mark.
Yes.
He thinks very highly of you.
Oh, he's wonderful. And we were impressed with that format that he's got too.
Yes, I've really enjoyed that.
That's wonderful. So he's expanded it beyond the violin.
Beyond the violin. So I'm teaching guitar, and I have one harp guitar student also on it.
All right.
So you don't have to play all these strings all the time.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, so it's a great way to reach people from anywhere.
Yeah.
So there's one thing that came out of the pandemic is doing more online teaching, and that's a format where it feels more like you're sitting right there with the person.
We're actually doing a whole digital camp. This will be our third one in January, the first week of January, and that information is at o'connormethod.com. If you want to join Maggie and I and several more teachers for 5 days, a few hours a day, and we take beginners, intermediate, advanced, and we have a lot of fun. We'll probably eventually hold another physical string camp. I've been putting those on for like 25 years, and but these digital camps they reach people that otherwise could not make it to the physical camp that you put on. Say like if we put one on here in Charlotte, and it's very costly to get there, but you can sign up for our online virtual camp if you want.
Yeah. Sure. And this week I'll be touring. We're doing our annual migration from here. This is the 1909 kitchen in Long Island, where where I'm broadcasting from, and I'll be going to my kitchen in Nashville.
All right.
From there, and with a stop in D.C. So if you're in the D.C. area, I'm going to be performing there, I believe, Saturday night. I'll have to look at my own schedule to see that. Just go to murielanderson.com. That's what I'm going to do to figure out where I'm playing. And then Florida after that, and you can get tickets now for the Saturday after Thanksgiving concert, either online or in Downers Grove. That'll be my 30th annual concert there. And at that show, also the show in the other shows on the way, we're going to have the visuals behind me. So that tune that I had played for you called Night Lights, that was, we'll have that night of the great meteor shower when we were on the sailboat, and so you'll see all the visuals from that, and a lot of other tunes that were inspired by the recent sailing adventure. So that's the big thing coming up.
That sounds beautiful.
Yeah.
We should mention that we're also performing this Saturday night.
Oh yeah.
For Maggie and I will be performing with the University Orchestra, Indiana University of Pennsylvania. Indiana University of Pennsylvania this Saturday night, and I'll be performing my improvised violin concerto, and the whole thing, the 40-minute piece.
Wow.
And once again, if you're interested in seeing what that sounds like, it's also on YouTube. Everything's on YouTube. The improvised violin concerto, where I've orchestrated all the parts for the orchestra, and then I'm improvising my lead solo line the entire way.
Wow.
There's no set anything for me to do. So I've been actually practicing improvising this week.
Wow.
And I mentioned that online, and all these people, like even musicians, were going, how do you practice improvisation? If you practice it enough, when does it become not improvisation? Like, you remember it? I go, no, that's the whole point. Like, you have to practice creating ideas from your mind and transferring to your fingers and getting that lag time, like split second. That's how I practice improv.
Wow.
So like, I'm looking at a chord sequence and I come up with a line in my head, and then how that gets to my fingers and out the instrument pronto, like in real time. That's practicing improv. So it's not like, oh, I'm going to practice this one line over and over, and then it's a set line, and then I'm going to remember it. That would be not improvisation, you know. So there's all kinds of stuff we're doing with the university. There, we're going to do an O'Connor method teacher training while we're there, and we're going to do a fiddle workshop and a master class, and then the performance with the orchestra.
Well, I bet that a lot of people equate you as a modern day Paganini, because you have so many of the same characteristics, starting out as a child protege, and then you're a great composer as well as virtuoso across a lot of different genres. And, I kind of think of you that way, and I bet you get that quite often.
Well, there's my hope is that there will be more and more violin player composers. We were talking a little bit about the history of American music, but the history of classical violin also had its kind of drawbacks creatively during the World War II period. So at the same time, like, things were really taking off, in some ways, the classical violinist was being reduced to just a player and not an ensemble leader, not an arranger, not a composer, and not an improviser. Mm-hmm. So what I'm doing in the classical field is I'm kind of reintroducing those ideas, and it's my dream, it's my goal. Like, for instance, Maggie graduated at Peabody Conservatory. One day, maybe a place like Peabody Conservatory or Juilliard or Curtis will reintroduce the idea that maybe some of these classical violin students should also be composing some of their music, because that was Pagan. That's what you mentioned, yeah. Paganini. Well, that's also right. What Mozart was doing, and yeah. Bach and Beethoven, and they were all player composers,
Mm-hmm. Well, let's finish this off with, we're quite over time, but it's just been so fascinating talking with you, and there's so much more that we can cover, so many more things that you've done and more areas to go into. But I would love to play a clip of you and Yo-Yo Ma, because that's just a real unique collaboration that has gotten a lot of attention across both the acoustic music scene and the classical music scene. So and feel free to text your hellos. We'll go ahead and text hellos back, because we can't get to everybody. But here's a little bit of Yo-Yo Ma together. Appalachian Spring, Appalachian. Yeah.
This is my piece called Appalachia Waltz. And I showed this to Yo-Yo Ma in my living room in Nashville, Tennessee in 1994. And he loved it. And he wanted to create projects with me based on this music. And together we collaborated on albums, and we sold 1 million CDs of this kind of music along with Edgar Meyer.
Yeah, wonderful bass player. Oh, that was just lovely. And again, thank you, Maura, for being here, and all of you for tuning in. MarkO'Connor.com for all things Mark O'Connor.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having us, Muriel, and both Maggie and I really enjoyed being on your show. Monday nights, here we continue the theme.
Yes, I had no idea you were doing Monday nights.
we were thinking that Monday nights were off for us for a while, but here we are with you now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Maggie says thank you so much for joining us. Made it extra special with you here.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks. I hope to see you sometime along the road.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I may catch up with Forrest, your son, when I'm in Nashville again.
Yeah.
Very good. Yes,
Okay.
he's doing good things.
Oh, yeah. Another great musician. Yeah.
Thanks so much, you guys.
Thanks. So long.
Bye-bye.
Bye.